Are you connected to someone famous in history? Are you trying to trace members of your family? Or think one of them is linked to a big event in history, like a battle, a royal celebration, maybe even a scandal? My name's Sian Williams, and this is My Family Secrets Revealed. We've gathered a team of historical and ancestry experts to solve intriguing family mysteries.
To have that in my genes, that is what I'm looking for.
After poring over birth records, doing DNA tests and building family trees...
This is your family tree.
He lived a long time, didn't he?
They'll reunite people with long-lost treasures.
That's brilliant, that. I can't thank you enough.
Prove links to famous faces.
Is there any other reason why you think you might be related to George Clooney?
And solve family puzzles about missing relatives.
My grandmother's father just kind of up and left, and we don't know really what went on there.
There'll be scandal along the way.
This is not the end that Gentleman James would have envisaged, I don't think.
Stories of heroism.
He's posted to a terrible campaign called the Campaign in Gallipoli.
There'll be new family to discover.
So your family's just got a lot bigger. Wow.
Unexpected surprises.
Goodness. Absolutely amazing. I think that's proof enough, to be honest.
And a chance for people to find out who their ancestors really were.
Wow, what a day.
Coming up today, searching for a secret left untold.
Everyone below deck died instantaneously.
For a missing husband and father.
I've always wondered.
And for where a story began.
So he had to leave it behind.
Welcome to Capesthorne Hall, a historic stately home in Macclesfield in Cheshire, where people from all over the UK have been flocking to have their questions answered. We'll find the truth behind family stories, share experiences of lost loved ones, and help people discover who they are by revealing where they came from.
Well, my surname's Harris, but I heard that it comes from Hughes, and the guy went bankrupt and moved to England and changed his name.
That's actually him. That's Harry Hill.
Well, I've always been told related to Guy Fawkes since I was told about 20-odd years ago, so I just came to see if there's any truth to the rumour.
If you've come across this before or if you've used it in your research, but
No.
It's a really useful source.
Getting ready to tackle today's family mysteries, our team of experts. Historian and law lecturer Onyeka Nubia is investigating a surprise connection with European royalty.
You're actually part of the royal house.
Writer and historian Tessa Dunlop reveals the historic story one man's father kept hidden all his life.
I just wish you would have told me this when he was alive.
And preparing to unravel our first family mystery is ancestry DNA expert Brad Argent. Britain seems obsessed with immigration, but what about the millions of Brits who've left the UK looking for work or adventure over the past 200 years? Up next is a woman who's desperately searching for the truth. Did her ancestor really jump ship in America, leaving a pregnant wife and children at home, never to return?
There's so many questions I have about my family, but in particular, one in relation to my great-grandfather, who went away to sea and never came home. My name is Julianne Coates, and I'm from Liverpool. My mum is the main reason that I'm chasing my ancestry. Many years ago, she wanted to start doing the family tree, and unfortunately, she got ill and passed away and didn't get the chance to do it. Some years later, when I got ill, I decided that I wanted to try and leave my legacy of the family tree. I've now been diagnosed with an incurable cancer, and it means even more. From what I was told, my great-grandfather, David Jones, and his wife, Lydia, fell in love, and they shouldn't have. She was from a wealthy family, he was from a very poor family, and her family did not approve. They had quite a hard life, and then David disappeared. In 1909, he went on board a ship to work abroad, but he never came home. Lydia was pregnant at the time. This is the last letter that David wrote to his wife, Lydia. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Dear wife and children, I write these lines to you, hoping you have got it all over, and it is a girl. The ship is going to stop trading between here and New York, and I am leaving her. I am never going to see any more or leave you once I get home again. So no more at present from your broken-hearted husband, D. Jones. I must conclude I cannot stick her any longer. She is a floating hell. And he was referring to the ship that he was on. It's just heartbreaking. And that's why I can't understand what happened to him. Where did he go? Because he had all intention of coming home. I have such a passion since I've been diagnosed. I don't know how long I have. The hospitals can't tell me. So to me, it's really important that I can answer as many questions on the family tree as I possibly can before it's my time to go.
Julie, welcome.
Thank you.
What a wonderful thing to do.
It's emotional.
It's such a heartbreaking story, isn't it? Here is a man, your great-grandfather, David Jones, working really hard for his family. He was a cook or a baker on the ship, wasn't he? This is the Cape Nord, and we're pretty certain this is the ship that he was on.
Never seen that.
We had to have a pretty hard look, but we think we found it. Now, what the ship would do is it would leave Liverpool, and then it would stop at various ports, and then it would head off to America. And then it may do a coastal run in America. I think here it's in Texas, getting some cotton, and then it would head its way back again with more cargo. This was the nature of the journey. The ship was headed to New York. We know that because we can look at manifests for the ship. So the question then becomes, where do we look? Do we look for him in New York? Where is he? It wouldn't be easy if it was anyone. His name was David Jones.
Welsh. Difficult.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
Just the odd one.
We looked at every David Jones that we could find in America at around that time to see if there was any way they could be your David Jones. Nothing. He's not in America. We're almost certain of that fact. Now, could he have got off the ship and changed his name? Of course. But we're pretty certain that he didn't do that because Lydia was frantically searching for him.
Yes.
So she's writing to embassies, she's writing to the shipping companies, she's trying to get some sense of, where's my husband, where's my husband? We have this wonderful letter that you have in your collection from the owners of the Cape Nord, Steele, Young and Company. And it talks about him actually leaving the ship in Cuba with two other men, heading off towards Santiago to work on a mine. So we have to start to speculate about what might have happened. And so we all used our collective experience to try and posit a theory about what happened. We think he's looking for work so that he can earn money to get back to his wife, back to his family. He clearly had enough of working on the ship. So we think he went to this mine.
Oh, wow.
This is El Cobra mine. It's just outside Santiago in Cuba. It's the biggest copper mine in the country. Now, not long before he got there, they just restarted the mine after decades of it being shut down. And they still may have been trying to get it into operation. So it would have been quite a treacherous environment. He's a cook, right?
Yeah.
He's not a miner.
No.
And we think what happened is at some point he met his end. 4,000 miles away from his family.
I've always wondered. I've always thought, did he make another life for himself or did something happen to him?
This is a man who wants to come home.
I always was frightened that he couldn't face up to coming home because the journey there had been so bad, and that's why he'd started a new life. So I apologise. I've called him fit to burn over the years. Bless him. So sad.
All this work you've done, remembering David, right? And you've got this wonderful gift that you can pass on. He's going to be remembered for generations.
I know, and it's all thanks to my mum. She never got to do the family tree, and I think that's what gave me the push to do it, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. Thank you. I'm blessed. Thank you.
So Davy Jones, he was not a bad lot after all, was he?
No, and I feel quite ashamed, to be honest. I've called him all the names under the sun over the years, thinking that he left his pregnant wife and family, yeah, and couldn't face the journey home.
And all the while, it looked like he was trying to get back home to Lydia and the kids.
I know. It looks like he was just trying to get some money to get back on the ship, but never mind.
If he was still alive today, what would you say to him?
I'd give him a big hug and apologise. That letter is a letter from someone who loves his family. And I apologise if you're listening.
The Russian Revolution of 1917 was no place for royalists who fled across Europe looking for shelter. Alexia Reed, an English teacher from West Yorkshire, has heard stories in her family of grandeur and drama, and she's come here today hoping we'll confirm a link to Russian royalty.
I'm Alexia Reed. I'm married to Ron Reed. We've got 2 children and 3 cats. I live in Shipley, West Yorkshire. My family originates from Russia. My great-grandfather, he was an advisor to the Tsar. And my family, they were very wealthy. They had a lot of land, they had a big house, they had servants. My grandmother used to tell me lots of stories about life in Russia, and her brothers and sisters used to spend a lot of time playing in the palaces, and they would just run around and play hide and seek. The Russian Revolution was in 1917. I think they left shortly after that. My great-grandfather, he felt his life and his family's life were in peril because of the associations with the Tsar. My grandmother told me the story of when they had to leave. They got told to pack up. They literally had a suitcase with a few things, and they sewed the jewels into their coats so that they had something that was valuable, and then they left their life. I've always felt that there was something in Russia that I needed to find, I guess, a sense of place, a sense of purpose. And I'd like to find out where I'm from, where my family come from, part of that story.
Hello, Alexia.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, your grandmother, Helen, passed on a lot of stories about Russia to you. And this is a photograph of your grandmother.
That's right.
But she was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, on the 4th of June, 1917. So a lot of the stories that she would have got were not stories that she herself has witnessed.
Well, she told me what it was like when she left Russia. It was very, very different. They were quite rich, they were quite wealthy. She told me stories of going in the Tsar's palace and playing with her brothers and sisters and what it was like and how they had to flee very quickly, and their life in France was very different. They were quite poor.
OK. So your family were being hunted, were they all?
Yes, my family were White Russians.
I see.
With association to the Tsar, so that they had to leave.
And White Russians is the name given to those Russians who fought against
the
Russian Revolution. So this is your family tree. This is you, Alexia Reed, your mother, and then going back 6 generations all the way back.
Wow, that's a long way back, actually.
It is a long way back.
It is a long way back.
All the way to the 1800s. Now, your family are a very well-known Russian family, as you suspected. Now, this is your great-grandfather, Sergei, and we know that your great-grandfather had significant ties to Tsar Nicholas II until his forced abdication on the 15th of March, 1917. 1917 was a very tumultuous year for Russia. The revolution which took place in October, we call it the October Revolution, was led by this man, Lenin. After the revolution, there was a Russian Civil War. Your great-grandfather, Sergei, he was on the wrong side in that war.
Oh.
And he fought against the Red Army. But he contracted typhus and was left incapacitated in Crimea in 1920 when it fell to the Bolsheviks. The Sergei that you know, his father was also called Sergei.
Right.
And this is him.
Okay.
We'll call him the patriarch of the family.
Right.
To avoid confusion. This man was a friend of Lenin.
Wow.
He wasn't a white Russian. And also considered somewhat of a teacher.
Wow.
The reason why his son was able to get out of Russia is because of his father's connections to the Russian establishment.
Oh, wow.
It was his father who got the fake papers that enabled your family to escape St. Petersburg, all the way through Europe into France.
Right. Wow.
So it was connections to the revolutionaries
Wow.
that ensured their safety. Even though his son left Russia, he stayed.
It's interesting to think that he still stayed in Russia after all the danger. He must have loved Russia very much, I guess.
Indeed.
His family's gone.
There is a memorial plaque at his old address dedicated to him in St. Petersburg. There's still a little more, we have to say. Now, Nicholas II had links all the way across Europe to Queen Victoria, to the German Kaiser. So there were strong European connections between the Russian ruling family and other European families. That was also true of, inverted commas, lesser nobility.
Okay.
Of which your family were part. So we began to investigate your tree further. Your family has links to European royalty.
Oh, really? I joked about that.
And that really... You don't have to joke anymore.
I really joked about that.
And why does it say Margaret II?
I've no idea.
Because she's the current Queen of Denmark. You're actually part of the royal house. Through this indirect route.
Right.
Through your great ancestor, Theodore.
Are you kidding me?
No. And you come from Shipley.
Yes. But Yorkshire lass, eh? Way up bet. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I never knew that about my family. I actually was kind of worried that it was going to be something quite dark, but it was something nice, which is good. Yeah, I'm quite shocked. I don't really feel like royalty, but do you know what? I'd kind of like to meet the Queen of Denmark, but, you know, we'll see if that's possible.
Having arrived with a question about why her family fled Russia, Alexia now leaves with that answered, but also with proof that she's connected to European royalty. That's a job well done. Now, what's in a name? That's what our next visitor is keen to find out. Immigration quotas are nothing new, but in 1920s Canada, everyone seemed to be welcomed, except for a few. Student Emma Litva-Bailey wants to know the origins of the name Litva and what it meant for her mother's family.
I'm Emma Litva-Bailey. I'm in my first year at the University of Manchester studying history. My question is about my last name, Litva. The name comes from my mother's side of the family. It's her maiden name. About 10 years ago, my mum died from breast cancer, and ever since, I kind of lost a link to part of my family history. She's not there to just ask her where Litva comes from or originates. My mum was born in Canada. My mother's father, I don't know as much. I know he was born in British Columbia. I think he has some Eastern European descent. Not too sure, I've been told everywhere. Lithuania, Latvia, I'm not too sure. That's one of the things I'm here to find out. Today, what I'm hoping for is obviously finding that sense of identity and connection with my family's history. But obviously, it's also so I can connect with my mum again.
Hello, Emma. Welcome.
Hi.
Who is this charming person?
This is my mum, Andrea. and she passed away 10 years ago when I was about 9 or 10. And she's the reason why I'm here today. I'm looking into my last name. I have quite an unusual double-barreled name, one of the last names being Litva. It's my mother's maiden name.
We looked at your DNA, and you can see here on your DNA, there's a big chunk, right? That green chunk there, clustered around Eastern Europe. So there's definitely some kind of Eastern European connection. But how did that name get to you here in the UK? So this is your family tree. It starts with you, and we step back and we see the Litva surname coming in with your grandfather, John, then his father, your great-grandfather, Jan, and then Joseph. So I want to step you through some of the records to try and tell the story of Litva and how it came to the UK, Canada, and where it came from. So if we look at two people, right? I want to have a look at Jan and Josefina, and these are your great-grandparents. We found this passenger record to Canada. We can see the date on it there. It's the 22nd of June, 1937. Passenger lists are wonderful because they give us such a great insight into a moment in history, and they tell us a lot about our ancestors. And if we zoom in, we can actually see Jan and Josefina on there. That is them coming out of Europe. We get to know their age, their relationships with each other, so they're married, what their occupations are, where they're from, Slovak, right? So this is it, Czechoslovakia, Slovakia. This is where you're from.
I had no idea. I didn't even know they were from Slovakia. I was assuming Latvia or Lithuania. I think my brother suggested Belarus. I had no idea. I didn't even think about Slovakia.
So this is the evidence, right, to support how that Litva name got to Canada. The next question is, why? It's between the wars. There is the Nazi uprising in Germany. There is some turmoil in Czechoslovakia, or what today we call Slovakia. So maybe that was what was motivating them to go. But they were going to something. So now I want to have a look at another record. And this is the Canadian National Railways Record of Service to Families. At the time, Canada was looking for people. They needed farmers to farm the land that they had. Railways were a boom. And this document here actually tells us a little bit about Jan and what he was doing. These are his dependents, Josefina, 21, and his mother, Anna, 53 years old. It had her as a dependent in brackets. Does that mean she was a dependent back in Slovakia? Or does that mean she was a future dependent in Canada? We don't know. But there's a little more to the story. This is another shipping record to Canada in 1924. And this is Jan's dad, Joseph, his great-great-grandfather. He went out in 24, and his son went out in 1937, 13 years later. When we sort of found this, felt that it really resonated with what's happening in the world today. The story of immigrants hasn't really changed. He says here he's a farmer, but the thing that really hits home for me is when it says nearest relative in country from which you came. And it's his wife, Anna.
So he had to leave her behind.
Yeah.
So sad. It's heartbreaking, but it's a very modern kind of problem that we're still seeing today in the world.
How do you think your mum would feel to know all this?
I think she would have loved to know all this. She was very into family history, and because it's such an interesting history, it's not very typical, I would say. Yeah, I think she would have loved it. Being an immigrant herself.
The journey of your ancestors is a journey that many people have taken and will continue to take, because that's what humans do. Thank you so much for coming and letting us be part of your story.
Thank you very much. It's been very enlightening. I was expecting them to say, oh, you're from Lithuania or Latvia, but Slovakia is a surprise. And to find out this history behind it of Josephina and Jan coming over and some of my family having to split up and leave family behind and everything they know. I think it's so interesting. I think my mum would be impressed. I think it was interesting how similar her great-grandfather or grandfather's story was to her own. I mean, she was an immigrant. She came from Canada to a new country, much like my family did. And it's just interesting to see that it's almost like a family trend. Maybe I need to go move somewhere now.
So we've cracked just where Emma's surname Litva originates, Slovakia. Another mystery solved. On the way, will historian Onyeka Nubia crumble one family's hopes for a link to a famous biscuit company?
And he, by profession, was a baker. How did you guess?
And genealogist Brad Argent is tasked with finding Julie's ancestral link to a World War II story that inspired a film.
And this is what we found.
Next up, a family story that's been passed down through generations.
Hello, Jeffrey. And how are you? And
Margaret.
Hello, how are you?
Jeffrey Homewood and his mum think they might be linked to a famous biscuit company. Will historian Onyeka Nubia break their dreams?
Why are you here today?
We've come to look at my mother's great-grandmother's side of the family, Elizabeth Carr. Well, it is a story from my grandfather's family that we was related to the Carr biscuit people.
And why do you feel you have that connection?
Elizabeth Carr was born in Whitehaven in Cumberland.
Excellent.
When her father, Robert, he left the army, he left and went to Carlisle, which is where the Carr biscuit factory is.
We found out some interesting information about your family. By the age of 23, Elizabeth Carr was living in Birkenhead with a family called Bake.
Oh, OK.
Bake,
Right,
B-A-K-E.
okay.
Oh, God. Right, as in to bake the cake.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. This is actually true.
OK.
And they were confectioners.
You can see where the stories have come from.
So by 1874, Elizabeth is married to a John Ayton. And he, by profession, was a
baker.
How did you guess? Yeah. So we can understand, therefore, where this sort of confusion may come from. The famous Carrs actually were from the Kendal area, not Carlisle. So unfortunately, there's no connection between your family and the famous Carr family. But your family seems far more interesting than the Carr family.
Well, we are.
So no connection there to the famous biscuit family, but definitely some new information Jeffrey and Margaret can digest. Now, genealogist Brad Argent is back again with Julie Coates. After solving the mystery of her missing ancestor, she wants to find out if a different relative played a major part in this amazing story. It's the 3rd of February, 1941, and the SS politician has set sail from Liverpool, bound for Jamaica and New Orleans, and carrying 270,000 bottles of whiskey. 2 days later, it ran aground off the coast of Scotland. The crew scrambled off and managed to save the cargo. The locals who witnessed the event saw fit to help themselves to the whiskey. They swiftly claimed it under the rules of salvage. But it wasn't long before customs folk turned up to retrieve the whiskey. They recovered as much as they could, except what had already been drunk or cleverly hidden. It's a cracking story, so good that it inspired the 1949 Ealing comedy Whiskey Galore, and gave the people of the Outer Hebrides a little tipple to enjoy during the austerity of World War II.
So, Julie, I know you come from a long line of sailors, and that you have a second question about Tom Huntington.
Yes.
This handsome gentleman here. First of all, how is he connected to you? And secondly, what's the question?
He's my great-uncle, and he was a mariner all his life. It was a sort of family story, I suppose, passed down, that he was something to do with the Whiskey Galore story, but I can't find any documents to prove that.
That's like, what a wonderful thing to be connected to.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting piece of history. So here is the SS Politician. This is the ship at the centre of what we're talking about here. On board is 28,000 crates of whiskey. In February, it runs into trouble in the Outer Hebrides. Grand Uncle Tom. He used to tell a story about it, didn't he?
He used to say that it was after it was shipwrecked. He went up with a captain from one of the boats, I don't know which one, and he helped give out the whiskey to the locals. But I've never been able to find him on any crew lists or anything to say that he actually did. So that's why really I want to find out, is it true?
We've put our best people to the task. Do you want to see what they found?
Oh, yes, please.
And we pulled up the logs of the SS Politician. And this is what we found. So this is the crew list.
I don't know how you found that, because I never could.
Can you see Tom Huntington?
Oh, wow. And that's the crew list from the SS Politician?
This is the crew list from the SS Politician.
So he was actually on the ship itself?
He was indeed.
Wow. I feel quite emotional at that. Gosh. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
To have this hard, solid evidence that it backs up.
I can't thank you enough. I really can't thank you enough. Because I didn't realise he was actually on the ship itself. The stories that have gone through the family was that he just used to say it was after the shipwreck and he went to hand out bottles to the locals, so I assumed he'd gone up on another ship to help out. I didn't realise he was actually on that ship. That is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Julie, you saw that crew list and your great Uncle Tom was on it, and that seemed like a real surprise to you. What was it like?
It was a real surprise because cousins have tried to track him down and to find out was he on it or what he had to do with it, and we can't find the information. So how you have, I don't know, but I'm absolutely thrilled, and he was top of the list as well.
Since your cancer diagnosis, you want questions answered. Is that about trying to find out who you are?
I think it's more a case of what I can leave for the next generation. I'm very proud of my heritage, where I come from, and I think when you're given the diagnosis that I have, it makes you realise you are on borrowed time, and if I can pass just a little bit down to the next generation, they won't have to ask the questions that I have.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a great surprise there for Julie. We've managed to prove that her great-uncle Tom was actually on the famous Whiskey Galore ship. Next, a story shrouded in secrecy. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 brought the theatre of war to Asia and the Pacific. British colonies fought back, with citizens of the empire joining in. Peter Sarowy wants to know what his Singapore-born dad did during the war.
Let me get that nose. Ow! Let me get that nose. Ow!
My name is Peter Ali Sarowy. I'm 46 years old. I'm married to Lisa. I have a 2-year-old son called Alexander. I consider myself a Scouser, but I live in Lancaster now, so I'm not really a proper Scouser anymore. My dad's name was Ali bin Sarowy. All I know is from Malaysia, and I don't really know about his parents. When I was about 19, I found a British Empire medal in my dad's wardrobe. I did ask my dad about it, but he just told me not to talk about it. It wasn't long after that my mum and dad split up. I kept in touch with my dad, but after a couple of years, we just fell apart. We didn't really keep in touch. About 3 years ago, I was emailed by this Australian guy. He told me that during the Second World War, my dad was on the same ship as his dad, the Teluga. The ship got torpedoed in Australia by a Nazi U-boat. And luckily, he was on deck with a couple of other officers, and they survived to get onto a lifeboat. He was on the sea for about 56 days, and he ended up on an island in Seychelles, where he was finally rescued. I view my dad as a war hero. because it was a statement of one of the English officers, and he said if it wasn't for me dad and the other two Malayans, the whole crew would have been dead. Basically because my dad's skills and the other Malayan skills of how to catch fish, how to catch like the seagulls, and also how to preserve the rainwater which they caught. About 7 years ago, I weighed 17 stone. I lost 7 stone. And from losing 7 stone, I went on to achieve my main running ambitions, which was to run marathons. When I do my endurance events, I feel like it's in my blood, because my dad had to endure 56 days on a life raft. I'd like to know more information about what happened with my dad, to find more history about my dad, about his family, and I would love to know the whole story.
Peter Sarrowy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
What a tremendous story.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so overwhelmed about it.
Bit of a mystery.
Oh, definitely.
Your dad, Ali.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, first of all, if we can unpick what happened in the war that clearly was so traumatic. He felt unable, for whatever reason, to share it with his son. This is an image of the Tulagi, which your father was on. He was a seaman in the Merchant Navy and had been working as such throughout the war, more or less. This ship, incidentally, almost purpose-built. It was built in 1939, so a relatively modern vessel. It leaves Australia in March 1944, 54 crew, of which your father is a significant player, a quartermaster. You know, of course, they're crossing the Indian Ocean, and you can probably take over the story at this point.
Yeah, as they were crossing the Indian Ocean, it was torpedoed by a Nazi U-boat.
Research has uncovered that, in fact, it wasn't a Nazi U-boat.
Right, okay.
It was a Japanese submarine.
Ah, right, okay.
That torpedoed in the middle of the night, 10 minutes after midnight.
Oh, brilliant.
And do you know what the Tulagi was carrying?
Was it flour?
That's right, 1,850 tons of flour. Yeah. And what is flour? Incredibly explosive.
Definitely, yeah.
So, boom.
Very combustible, yeah.
Went up in a matter of moments. Everyone below deck died instantaneously. A lot of the lifeboats were destroyed. They got 4 onto the water's surface, and just 15 men scrambled onto those lifeboats, including your father. Yeah. Extraordinary.
Very lucky man.
I can confirm the first few days they began with food rations they'd accrued from the Tulagi. So for the first 27 days, there was half a biscuit and 12 milk tablets each, and a little bit of chocolate even for the first 6 days. But of course, that quickly ran out. You yourself were aware, weren't you, that your father played a very important role?
Yeah.
And here we have testimony to his vital role in maintaining life. MV motor vessel Tulagi sunk by enemy action. There it is on the 28th of March, 1944. Have you seen this document before?
No, I don't think I've seen this one, no.
Well, here we have him, Ali Sarrowy. And if we just focus on the highlighted bits, I think it'll give you some idea of the importance, the significance of Ali's role.
Malays improvised a spear from a raft extension and a pair of scissors from a first aid box. And throughout the entire experience, these men displayed excellent morale and attitude, and it would hardly be possible to explain in words just how they did for the well-being of the party. So, yeah, it's very, very encouraging to hear, and, you know, to know that these guys survived because of my dad and his 2 Malayan friends. Yeah. About their skills, you know, none of them would have survived.
And your father, of course, able to guddle for fish and catch seagulls. How did he catch seagulls? That is...
Basically, I heard a story where they used to just lie on the rafts. They pretend that they were dead, so they stayed as still as possible with their eyes open, so the seagulls would come down, land on their faces and try and pet their eyes. So as they landed on their faces, they grabbed the seagulls.
Oh. So 1 second from blindness.
Exactly,
oh,
yeah.
God.
So they had to be quick, and obviously,
yeah. We know that, of course, the Tulagi goes down on the 28th of March. By the 19th of May, the 2 remaining lifeboats became separated.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, therefore, of the 15 men, only 7 survived. Yeah. That second lifeboat was never heard of again. And on the 25th of May, your father came ashore in the Seychelles.
Yeah, definitely. It's some journey in a life raft, over 15,000 miles.
Extraordinary.
Definitely.
It was actually in total 58 days at sea.
58 days, was it? Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely amazing.
There was obviously recognition of what your father did to have received the British Empire Medal. So we're going to jump now to 1947, and you'll see this letter is from King George to your father, a message from His Majesty the King. Has been graciously pleased to award you the Medal of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in recognition of your outstanding courage after the MV Tulagi had been torpedoed in the Indian Ocean.
It's amazing. To actually get a personal letter from the King. Wow. Speechless. I just wish you would have told me this when he was alive.
Heartiest congratulations, as it says at the end.
Yeah, a very proud moment.
You were keen to find out a bit more about your dad. Your father was, in fact, married in 1947.
Oh, right, OK.
The marriage didn't last, but by the early 50s, he got married again. I'm going to show you now the Australian immigration record from the early 1950s. His wife is, by this stage, with child. So you have a half-sister in Australia, or at least a girl who began her life in Australia.
Oh, no, I didn't know anything about that. That's a very big shock and surprise, nice surprise.
We know that by 1961, he was in England.
Yeah.
And by now, married to your mother.
Yeah.
So a totally new life.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Am I right in believing, Peter, that all photos of your father, Ali Sarawi, were lost?
They were lost, yeah. Yeah, lost by my family. We don't know where they went to or know where they've gone.
Well, we did an extensive search. We knew he was a seaman, obviously, in the Merchant Navy during the war. And I wonder if you recognise this man.
Yeah, it's my dad, yeah. To actually see him there again, amazing.
Thank you, Peter. It was an extraordinary story, your father's.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the information. You know, a nice new photograph as well of him. Thank you.
Peter, your dad was quite the man, wasn't he?
Oh, it certainly was. To find out all that information about him, which I've never known before, it's absolutely amazing. When he received a letter from King George himself, that was an amazing letter.
Yeah,
to read
that really touched you when you saw that letter, didn't it? Why was that?
It just made me feel proud. Not many people can say they got personal letters from the King to say what a hero he was. And I know that's something to be very proud of. And I'll be hoping to pass that on to my son when he's older, so he never forget about his granddad. So many positive things, knowing that he saved the lives of these 7 guys, knowing that he was valued.
What was it like when you saw that picture of your dad today?
That was a very big moment. I've not seen a picture from my dad since I can remember him when he passed away. So actually seeing that picture, it was absolutely beautiful. It was nice to see what he looked like a cheeky chappy on that picture, but it was lovely to see.
If he was alive today, what would you say to him?
I'd probably give him a big up, tell him how proud I am of him and how much I miss him.
Peter, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me and thank you for finding out his life story. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
God, sorry it's made you so emotional, but...
In a nice way, in a happy way.
In a nice way.
Definitely, in a happy way.
It's been so rewarding to solve this family mystery and reconnect Peter to the heroic life of his father, Ali. It's been a day of revelations and fascinating stories that these families will remember forever. Until the next time, goodbye.